Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on tips to deliver high quality prints through formulation and quality control. Thanks for joining today. I'm Robert Grotans, the Global Technical Marketing Manager at X-Rite, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Presenting today is Roger Webb, our Applications Engineer for Printing and Inks. Just a few things to go over before we get started. Due to the number of people that are attending today's webinar, we will keep everyone muted. During the webinar, if you have questions, please use the questions function on the GoToWebinar panel. I will be monitoring questions, and at the end of the webinar, we'll have time for a short Q&A session. Finally, this webinar will be recorded, and you'll receive a link so that you can review the webinar at your convenience. So with that, I'll turn things over to Roger to kick it off.
Okay, good morning, guys. Thank you all for attending. This is going to be a high-level overview of IFS and QC. Okay. All right, so the key business objectives to utilizing some of the X-Rite products that we offer, predominantly IFS and QC, your color control software products, is ROI improvement. Of course, everybody wants a return on their investment. The speed to the press room, how quickly you can get the inks out to the press. Waste reduction, which is key for all converters. And full production capacity. Okay, and how formulation and QC can help. Both of these products reduce the lead time, run lengths, and make ready time. They help to maintain your color consistency, to be able to hit your customer's specifications, and avoid any variations in productions. All of these will contribute to delivering high quality prints. Okay. The question is, how is your operation evaluating color quality across the workflow currently? Are you doing a visual assessment only? Are you doing a visual assist? Evaluate with controlled lighting, i.e. light boost. A node, using a spectrophotometer with digital standards, or D, workflow connectivity, using a spectrophotometer and software reporting for each job. Okay, and should we be using a visual guide as a standard? And are Pantone guides good for color standards? Spandex are guides, which is your Pantone guide. These are printed from a high quality controlled press run. They're very good press samples, inspiration for design, but they should not be considered a standard. These are essentially guides. Only a way to communicate color when two people aren't present to view the color in the same conditions. Okay. Any other provided physical standards, brand color physical standards, they suffer from the same problem as your Pantone guide. It's a printed piece, and each one can vary. Okay, so there is going to be some difference between them. Light standard dark guides, while they're not really any more consistent, and they don't really provide a good pass-fail tool. Okay, the drawdowns are not perfectly uniform across the print. They're intended only to demonstrate the color can be achieved with the ink, not that every part of the drawdown matches the standard perfectly. Okay, so what is your current waste within your production process? A, less than an hour per job, or B, more than an hour per job? And I know typically this can depend upon how many colors are present during this run, but on average, which one of those? Okay, so now we'll go over some of the economic impacts of IFS. Okay, you have three primary associated printing costs, okay, which is your production or your press time, the substrate or the material that you're printing on, and the ink. While the ink is the lowest associated cost, a lot of times it has the largest impact. Okay, where can IFS produce the most cost savings? Produces it in the ink room, in production, and it drastically benefits you in the inventory. Okay, so we'll go over the ink room savings. Okay, it saves formulation time through eliminating a multitude of proofs, corrections, and manual calculations. Okay, it allows a more cost-efficient method of utilizing press returns. Okay, or some people refer to them as work off or overages. Okay, direct import of recipe from IFS to dispenser is available through an add-on to IFS. Okay, so we'll go over some of the conventional ink room practices. Okay, a lot of times in a conventional ink room environment, you're going to find that that John knows more than anybody else does about what's happening in the ink room. Okay, so it really relies heavily on tribal knowledge, and we all know that that's neither practical or sustainable. Okay, so the way that they go about achieving a color match is that a sample color is referenced to either a physical sample, Pantone guide, or a previous recipe, okay, or a print that they've done prior to. Okay, the recipe is weighed up in a lab size sample, is proofed and adjusted, and they're taking notations of every addition that they make. Okay, then the recipe's converted back to 100% quantity. Then it's manually entered into the dispensing or blending system. And then the desired quantity is then produced and delivered to press. Okay. This process introduces a large amount of human error. Okay. They have to be very diligent in notating their additions made, etc. Okay. When they're using the IFS software in the ink room, okay, they reference a digital standard, or they'll measure that sample into the software, making it a digital reference. Okay, then they'll prompt the software to give it a theoretical formulation. They'll weigh that up in a lab size sample, and they'll produce a proof. Okay, then they'll measure that sample back into the software, comparing it to the reference. Then once that they have done that, if it doesn't meet their standards or their delta values, then they'll prompt the system to give them an adjustment. It will then adjust the recipe. They'll produce the proof, and then they'll continue in that same thing until after they have the recipe that they desired and they've met their specs. All right, once they've met their specs, they'll deliver that recipe directly to the dispenser. All calculations are done within the software. Then the desired quantity is then produced and delivered to press. Okay, and this only requires that the operator is diligent whenever they're making additions, meaning that if they overshoot an item or a product, they tell the software that they did so. Okay, and that's easily done within the software. Okay, so now we'll move on to the production savings. Okay, how does it help you in the production environment? Okay, any printer or converter, they're going to experience significantly more press down time, okay, whenever they're not using IFS, due to inconsistent color from the ink room, due to manually adjusting or color matching the inks without sufficient guidance. Okay, so a lot of times they'll look at a two-dimensional screenshot of where the color is in relationship to the standard, and they'll make that based off of just a theoretical guess on their behalf. Okay, those are typically never notated and documented from that point, and i.e. they continue to go through the same process each time that they print that specific color. Okay, so now we'll move into the inventory savings. Okay, how does IFS help you to maintain your inventory or control your inventory? Okay, it optimizes the use of ink leftovers. Okay, this will reduce the inventory of your overage inks and prevent a lot of waste. Okay, when we say it optimizes the use, okay, a lot of conventional type of work-off programs or overage programs, they are strictly product related. So if a product does not consist or consists of a given ingredient, the software doesn't know how to use that product. Okay, IFS works off of spectral data, so it can optimize the use of these overages in a much more efficient manner. Okay, the accuracy of the inks delivered to the press, okay, will in turn reduce the amount of ads, in turn reducing the amount of overage that comes back. The more that you add to an ink whenever it's delivered to the press, the more return that you have. Okay, and whenever you're utilizing IFS to use ink leftovers, okay, it only requires one measurement of that ink leftover, and then you can prompt the system to utilize it until your inventory is depleted. Okay, so the material part, which I know a lot of converters are very familiar with this, it reduces or eliminates the amount of color matching and adjustments on press. Okay, so this helps to reduce waste because your physical numbers in relationship to the substrates that you have to carry are much more accurate. Okay, which in turn reduces the amount of uncontrollable inventory of your material. Okay, and that is an essential part of maintaining the levels of your substrates. Okay, now these are some critical IFS notables. Okay, when utilizing IFS, there's 3 tiers. Okay, if you do not run the manufacturer edition, you're solely dependent upon the assortment that is supplied to you by your vendor. An assortment is all of your base colors that are going to comprise every match that you create. Okay, so if you have a bad assortment, you can expect bad results from IFS. Also, your other key points is that you have to have a standardized process. Your proofing methods have to be standardized in order to ensure the accuracy of the software. Okay, what QC solution are you currently looking for? A, to measure colors to compare to a standard, which is a non-job-based solution, just one color at a time. B, require measuring for more advanced color metrics and job traceability. Or C, are you looking for some type of scorecard server for brand owner management? Okay, so printing and spot color specifications. Okay, without any of the software, it's impossible to be able to do these types of things, especially for brand management companies. Okay, we're going to walk into the QA tools for color cert. Okay, this is a screenshot of exactly how QA tools looks. This is a piece of software that was created by X-Rite to take the place of a lot of our legacy products that we had, Color Master, IQC, products of that nature, to where you could now get it the same functionality or similar functionality within Color Cert. Okay, you have your plotting. You can plot all of your trials, all your trial information. It also comes with the best match function, which is extremely useful, especially to the press operators. This essentially tells you if the color can be achieved by way of density. So you'll see there in the screenshot, it says it has your sample, your standard, which is always in the center, and the predicted best match as it relates to density. Okay, so these are three examples of a good match, one that's barely in tolerance, and one that's totally out of tolerance. Okay, for the very good match, this is going to be very easily controlled on press. If you notice your target areas within the operating range, to the left-hand side is your delta E values and what you can expect those delta E values to be depending upon the density, which is located across the bottom of this chart. So with this particular color, if you're looking at the very good match, you have a wide operating window of pass-fail. Okay, so anywhere between essentially a 1.59 to a 1.83, you can expect to yield a passing graph, which is a very large operating window. Okay, the second one, which is barely in tolerance, if you notice that green area is much more defined. You have a lower tolerance on your delta E that's going to yield you a positive delta value. And at that point, typically, most people are going to rely on some assistance from your ink tech because an adjustment really needs to be made here. Without an adjustment, to try to control a 0.1 variation throughout the course of the run is almost impossible, especially depending on what type of printing you're doing. On the third, the final one, you'll notice that the color cannot be achieved. So at this point, there's no wasted material coming off the end of the press for someone attempting to try to get this color in spec by changing the film thickness, analox rolls, etc., applying more ink to the sheet or less ink to the sheet. It's automatically predicting that you will not be able to achieve this. So at this point, this requires an adjustment of the ink. Printing to a print quality specification. With ColorCert, you have the ability to control all these attributes of your printing process. The substrate, CMYK solids, the RGB overprints, your dot gain, TVI, gray balance, and your spot colors. You're able to control, view, and report on all these areas. Okay, so now we'll move on to the press room tool. Okay, and the press room tool is geared for ease of the press operators. Okay, so once your profiles and your rules have been developed and the jobs are set up, all the press operator has to do is come into this job and hit measure tool. At this point in time, he takes the measurements, and ColorCert works on, it's a job-based application. So saying it's a job base, it reads all of your CMYK colors, your spot colors, it measures your TVIs, and gives you a pass-fail. Okay, as if you can notice there on the screen, this displays that all of the primaries, which are your process inks, anything that has a vignette or a screen associated with it, these are all acceptable matches. They're all well within the tolerance range established, which is a 3.5. And to the right-hand side, you'll notice the level of pass. Okay, so the higher the green, the more within tolerance or closer to 0 that you are. And to focus on what matters, utilizing this software enables you only to be able to concern yourself with the red X's. Anytime that you have a red area, those are the things that you need to identify and adjust. So anything that is located with or identified with a green check, you're acceptable. So there's no need to really try to control those attributes of the job. And that concludes our presentation of IFS and ColorCert. And I really hope that this was beneficial to you all. I believe that at this point in time, Robert can start fielding some questions.
Yep. So if you haven't submitted a question yet and you have one you'd like to ask, please feel free to do so. It looks like we already have one question. Do you have a recommendation of density for spot color printing on offset and gravure?
Those are typically going to derive from LAB values. Okay, so density is only going to be utilized in evaluation of how to adjust this from a density perspective. But to say that there is a density specification for spot colors, there is not, because it's all controlled by the L value of your LAB targets.
Okay. We'll give another 30 seconds to see if any more questions come in. Can we measure the density of halftone in offset printing?
You can measure the density. However, when utilizing ColorCert, it's not really of any benefit, because your target's already predetermined by your TVI values. but it will give you a density value.
Okay. It looks like there are no more questions, so we'll actually end here and give you folks the rest of your time back. Once again, you'll receive an email with the link to the recording of this webinar. I just want to say thanks everyone for joining today.
Yeah, thank you all.